So how many people out there remember the days, well, and still now, where you go over to a family member's house and they can control the remote? And you say, ah, crap. Anybody? Or is it just me? Where someone gets it and it gets stuck on something that you don't want to watch? What'd you say? Well, let's just pipe down in the back. I said, how many people go over to someone's house and they regret who got the remote control? I know, you guys just watch TV in the background pretty much, so. Even with that TV remote, though, that person that has control can only control so many different things. They can control what channel it's on and necessarily the genre, but you can't control if there's a blackout, if there's a commercial, you can't control that piece of it. So there's certain things that we just need. Even with the TV, when we think that we have full control, we don't. Or there's the famous spectrum blackouts that happen, where you turn on a channel and you don't get it. Or you want to watch a hockey game or something and that's regionally blacked out, so that's great even when you pay extra money for that. The Lightning and Sabres come to mind specifically. But here's the reality. We can't control everything in life. We just can't. So today's topic is, the sermon title is, Who's in Control? And I just keep going back to these different kind of analogies first, like with the holidays coming up and everything. You know, we like to think that we can control like the food, who's going to show up, the perfect temperature, you know, the prime rib's going to be done perfectly, the presents are going to wrap just right, the kids are all going to be behaved and not wild animals, and then something goes wrong. Every single time. Doesn't matter how much you plan it, something happens. It's just a fact of life. Or, my personal favorite, when you're going on a day trip and you think it should only take 20 minutes and then construction hits. Or a kid has to go to the bathroom. Or they ate too many French fries. So then you have a few more issues. Right? There are certain things that you can control and you can't. So you could say we're going to leave at, for example, we got ready to fly to Florida, I think of our first flight, and we're like, oh, we're going to leave, we're taking an early flight, it'll be great, Bryce will still be asleep. 4 a.m. wakes up, our alarm goes, 4 a.m. comes around, our alarm goes off, Bryce is wide awake the entire time. And this poor sweet old lady sitting next to us on a plane ride got to deal with all of Bryce's craziness at the age of 2. With a 7-month pregnant Melanie and only 2 seats. So, sidebar, get that 3rd seat if you need it, if you're traveling with a kid. But you can't control certain aspects of things. They're just out of control. Let me skip that part. So, when things don't go right, we often kind of go into this form of panic. Like we think, oh crap, this didn't happen, what's going to go wrong here, what's going to go there, wow, what are we going to do now, oh my goodness, 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 because we all want control. How many people out there, before we get into the depth of the sermon, will raise their hand and admit that they have a little bit of a control issue? Anybody? 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 Sherry's peeking her hand up just a tiny bit over there. We all want control over everything, and it's really just not going to happen. Because here's the point. Sometimes we think that we're strong enough to handle things on our own, but the reality is sometimes the greatest strength is acknowledging you need help and you can't do it on your own. We've got to give up that control. We've got to be willing and able to give up that control. Before I get into the scripture, I can just think of the examples of like, even with church, and we're going to talk about Peaceful Point a lot today, but you know, you think, this is my baby, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it, and then you're so stressed out for nothing when the reality is there's someone right here that's saying, I'd love to help you with this. I'd love to help you with that. Hey, you know what? I'm actually good at that. Sometimes the greatest strength that you can have is giving up that control to somebody else, and most importantly to God. So today we're going to talk about Luke chapter 12, 22 verses 31 through 31, And this passage in particular talks a lot about worry, but I think that it's important because worry goes hand in hand with control. We worry more if we don't know who controls our future. So then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap, they have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable is your life than birds? How much more valuable is our life than birds? I think about that song by Jason Gray. It says, even the sparrows. Jesus cares so much about even a sparrow. How much more does he care about our own lives? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you can't do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how wildflowers grow. They don't labor or spin, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of those. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow, is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And don't set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Don't worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need him. But seek first his kingdom, and these things will be given to you. And then kind of a sidebar one, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. That's tough for all of us, I feel like. I feel like such a simple verse, you hear it all the time. But to truly trust God with all your heart means giving up and giving him control. All right, can you go sit down, please? For as much as I dislike Facebook, I find a lot of sermon stuff on there. And one of the first quotes that I came across was actually from, it was on George Wagner's page. And he said, God's plan and his ways of working out his plans are frequently beyond our ability to fathom and understand. We must learn to trust him when we don't understand. And that's by Jerry Bridges. So that's kind of tough, isn't it? There's some things that happen in life that we don't fathom. We're thinking, why? Why did this happen? What's going on here, God? And we just have to just sit back and trust him. And be honest, it's tough to do. It's really tough when we get into talking more about Peaceful Point, to sit back and say, what's going on here, God? I want to give this to you. But at the same time, we want to have control over everything. So Scripture, Christ tells us not to worry. So why do we worry so much? To be honest with you, as a gut check, I think it's because we lack trust in God. It's great to walk and say, well, God's got this, or, praise God for this, or praise God for that. But I think that a part of why we worry so much is because we truly wonder, do you, God? Do you? Because I want to control this aspect, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. You notice that word that I keep saying, I, or as Peyton likes to say, me. So, the reality is that gets you so far, but, for a 2-year-old girl, she wants to have control, but she needs help even with stuff like putting on her sneakers and things like that, as much as my lovely daughter wants to think that she can do it all by herself. And I think that we all have the faith of that sometimes, where we think, we've got all this, mainly because we're too stubborn to ask for help. So, here's my sermon in a sentence. If you can't hear anything else over the running children, anything else, just listen to this. The devil wants us to think that we're fully in control, so we can trust ourselves more than God. We need to control our urge to do things on our own, and as my girl Carrie Underwood said, let Jesus take the wheel. So let's say that again. The devil wants us to think we're fully in control, so we can trust ourselves more than God. We need to control our urges to do things on our own. So every day we wake up, it's a prayer to God. It's not, I got this, it's a prayer to God. You get ready to do a job, pray to God about it. My dad's famous for it. There'll be times where we'll be struggling with something like crazy, and then we'll get a quick little, hang on a second, and then you're sighing at that point. You're like, I just want to get this stinking job done. Put his hand on your shoulder. Dear God, please help us with this. What happens for the most part, 2 seconds later, it's done because we took that quick little second to say, God, help us out with that. When we think that we can do everything on our own, we can't. We can't do it without the help of Jesus. But as we're talking about, most of us here are control freaks. Sounds terrible to say, but a lot of us here are total control freaks about anything. It's our baby, it's our house, it's our car. You're not going to drive my vehicle, you're not going to do this. I want you to dress this way, I want you to dress that way. We all want to have aspects of everything. I think of, Peaceful, just this ministry, for the perfect example of that. I wanted to have this absolutely beautiful place. I wanted to have our own building by now. I wanted the sermons to go a certain way, worship to go a certain way. And God kind of stepped back and said, well, that's great, but that's really not how it's going to go at this point. And I tried to really, if I'm totally honest, try to do too much of it on my own. You know, you pray a little bit, but again, I had my heart set on this is how I wanted it to go, and it didn't happen. And then God pretty much said, what happened? Come summertime, we hit that 30 mark that I was really going for. But then there's a part of me that said, take a break. Now is not the right time. First time in quite a while, if I'm being totally honest, I gave God full control. Because I had a lot of people say, let's keep going. Why are you stopping? Let's keep doing this. But my heart said, no, you need to take a break and kind of to reset it. Matthew West said, it's not our responsibility to predict or control the changes in our daily circumstances. It never has been. We serve a God who's all-knowing and in control. Isaiah 55:9 says, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my thoughts higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Basically, what's that saying? What's one of the most famous scriptures out there? Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future. God has plans for us. We might have a plan. God could change that plan. But we're never going to hit that destination if we don't let Jesus take the wheel and give that plan to God. We want to mold our image into who we want it to be, which could be way over here. And God could be like, yeah, that's great, but I want you over here. So what do? Do we stay over there? You can. You could probably make a lot of money and be somewhat happy, but eventually you're going to kind of, get unhappy. You're going to miss out on some different things, and you're slowly going to come this way, slowly going to come this way, slowly going to get over here. And then when you give it to God, part of it's a wonderful moment when it happens, and the other part's like when you got to tell your wife that she was right. It kind of stinks. You sit there and you're like, if I only did this the first time, then we would have been okay. And that's kind of, what has to happen, though. We have to mold ourselves in God's image because He has the plan. So if He tells you something, it might be absolutely crazy and ridiculous, but there's a good chance that He's got a reason for doing it, and He's put stuff in place. But it goes back to that first thing that, especially as men, we all are really terrible at, that whole listening thing. And, we could talk and talk and talk, and I could hear 2 words that are said, mainly because I just don't want to hear it. And that's kind of goes back to that control piece, is that you got to be willing to want to hear what God has to say. So, going back to Peaceful Point, I read this kind of in a book here, and I thought it was a great idea. So why does God sometimes take things away or have us, just like for the ministry, take a 6-month break before we got there? I think 4 different reasons. The first is that because sometimes you need a wake-up call from something. You could think, I've got everything going great, and then something happens. You need that wake-up call from God saying, hello, you're spending all of your hours doing this, or sure, congratulations, you got that promotion, but how's your kids doing? Or, that's a great vehicle, but how long do you have to work for that? There's certain things that sometimes God might take something away from you temporarily or give you that setback because you need to have that wake-up call that Jesus is there. This next one's a tough one. Sometimes you need a breakup call. Sometimes you need God to realize something happens because God says what you're doing is wrong, or you're not ready to do really what I have planned for you. And that's a tough pill, I feel like, for any human with any sort of pride to swallow when someone says that's a good idea, but you're not there yet. You're not there yet. And when that point came to mind, I thought of Psalm 46:10. This verse just came in my head a lot, and it's very difficult for me. Be still and know that I'm God. Be still and know that I'm God. Basically, be prepared, keep trucking on, but don't panic about anything because God's got everything under control. Give it to Jesus. Anybody out there brave enough to admit that being still and waiting on God is a very difficult thing? Anybody want to put their hand up and say it? A few people? Thank you, Bryce. I know it's very difficult for you to be still, period, bud. And the third one is sometimes you just need a shake-up call. Sometimes that you've almost got all the pieces right, but if you switch to this little bit here, you might get to that final point where you're really honoring God with it. And it's not just about church. I'm using that as the example, but sometimes it's in your work. Sometimes it's you're on the right path, Trav, but maybe if you just work a little longer here, stop focusing on numbers and focused on the time you spent with them, then you'll really be where you need to go. For the real estate agents in the room, maybe it's focus on the relationships with these clients, and then we're going to build off of it from there. It's not a full-blown, I'm not getting any sales or this or that. It's don't worry about the numbers. I'll take care of it. Just focus on those relationships because you're meeting people that you would never ever meet any other time. The fourth one is a take-up call. Take-up call, to be honest with you, it's just really just taking it up and giving it to God fully, which is what we all need to do all the time. So those 4 ways sometimes that, I think that God will do things and kind of put things on hold and move us in a different direction. We need a wake-up call, we need a break-up call, we need a shake-up call, or a take-up call. God will mess up our plans to teach us something if we let him. And one of the best ways to do that is, like I said, with scripture that said, be still and know that I'm God. So I keep talking about what we can't control. What are some things that we can control? This is probably my favorite part, the last few minutes of the sermon here. I wish that Troy was here for this first point, but it says you can't control what other people do, but you can control how we respond. You can't control what other people do, but you can control how we respond. Mom, what story do you think I'm going to tell here? So, many years back, some people have heard this, and I'm sorry, but it's my favorite story of all time. When we were younger, we had owned Rainbow Shores Campsite. And my grandpa and my brother and I, we had a pretty good relationship, but there was always times that there'd be some fighting involved. And, sometimes it was just, he was trying to teach us some work ethic, and other times we were not headed, and this was truly an occasion where I just felt good afterwards. So, we're trying to fix something. It was something about a fence down at the beach, and it wouldn't work. And we were doing it for about 10, 15 minutes. My grandpa had said, I'll come back and check on you, and he came back, and the fence wasn't fixed yet. We told him, so we can't figure this out. So he gets out of his backhoe, because he loved sitting there just from an upper position and just kind of watching us. And he gets out of his backhoe and he comes down and he said, I don't mean to say anything to you guys, but you're idiots. And we look at him and we go, huh? And he was waiting, because teenage boys, generally we snap and we'll say something back, and then it'll, lead to someone feeling like they're in the right. So I said, what'd you say? He said, you're idiots. And I looked at him, and Troy about pooped his pants laughing, because I said, well, thank you, and we drove away. He was waiting for that response, and it was a simple, well, thank you, and we drove away to the next job. Came back 20 minutes later, and probably for the second time ever in his life, my grandfather said to me, I'm sorry, I need to apologize, you guys were right. We can't control what other people do, but we can't control how we respond. Some people are going to do some stuff that drive us absolutely bonkers, absolutely crazy, like when our children run around mad, or they do this or that. And I fail here often, responding with anger, but we can control how we respond with, just the tones of our voices, or whatever it may be, or, maybe it's a coworker that drives you up a wall. Just respond somewhat politely to them, and I think it'll go really a long way. We can control how we speak, and how we speak determines how we feel. So I had this verse in the Bible. Hang on one second. Where am I? Ephesians. Okay. So Ephesians 4:29. Which realistically could be a sermon in itself, but it's just important for today. Do not let any unwelcome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful. Do not, for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. A quote from John MacArthur I saw the other day, I think it's spot on, that if you guys, again, get nothing, sometimes the only Bible that people ever read are the lives that you're living. It's pretty deep, isn't it? Sometimes the only people in the world, the only Bible that they read, they'll never pick up this book right here. They're always going to look at this book and probably say that it's trash, or it doesn't make sense, or these stories aren't real, or whatever. So they may never ever open this book. The only book, the only Bible that they might see is, how you doing at work? How you doing at home? How you doing when, someone in customer service drives you up a wall? Are you flipping out on them? Or are you, just saying, hey, how can we fix this? Sometimes the only book they're reading is our actions and our words with that. And I think that's incredibly powerful that we need to take away. We can control our tongues. It's difficult to do. It's probably one of the harder things to do, but we can absolutely control what we say and what we do. And we need to make sure that we're doing it. Our talents come from God. We may not be able to control what those talents are, but we can control how we use them. So, as much as I'd love to be a great basketball player, I'm just not. 5'7", 200 some odd pounds. So basketball is not one of my talents. Talking to people, on the other hand, if you ask any of my coworkers, they tell me that I never shut up. So I can't control what my talents are, but I can control how I use them. And I think that we all need to do that. We all need to not sit back and mope and say, oh, well, you know, Jericho's probably the best wrestler in the state, so why should I bother with it at all? I'm not going to be good at this. I'm not going to be good at that. Same person on the wrestling team. You know what that person's strength might be? Talking Jericho up and saying, hey, did you do that yet? Maybe this is going back in the sermons, but maybe you're great at being the rumble strip, the reminder. So maybe your strength is not being afraid to say to someone, hey, did you practice the other day, Jericho? You're getting a little slow. Did you do your squats? Did you do this? Everyone has a different strength. We can't control necessarily what our talents are. God gave us each talent, made us all differently, but we can control how we use them. And lastly, I'll make sure I get this. I wrote it down afterwards, so it's... We can't control and we can't fix what people are going through, but we can be a part of their journey. So we all want to fix people. Everyone gets into my field, the social work field, because we want to fix people, fix people, fix people, fix people. We can't control that. We can't fix everybody. But you know what I can do? What you can do? You can be there to lift them up in their spirits. You can be there to say, hey, you know, I noticed you've been struggling. Here's this. Or let me take you here. Let me take you there. And you can be there to call and text. Social media is a great thing. Phones are great. Just a simple reply. You can't fix everybody. We can't. And we certainly cannot do it on our own. We need to have God when we're on that journey. So if we realize that we can't fix anybody or everybody, but we can certainly be there to support them and say to people, you know, hey, come check out the church, or hey, have you reached out to so-and-so? That's going to go a long way instead of just giving up and being like, been doing this forever and he's not getting any better, so here we go. If we did that, man, I just think about how stubborn I was growing up. I'd still be riding with training wheels right now. We can't control, we cannot fix anybody, but we can be there along the journey. And as parents, that's one of our biggest things is that, you know, we might not be able to control all the events of our children's lives, and they might do some crazy things, but we can control that we're always going to love them, and that we're always going to be there to support them, and that we're going to say no matter what, that you might be a pain right in my you-know-what, but I love you to death, and you're my son, you're my daughter. Don't ever think that you can't come to me. That's something that we can control. I can't control if Bryce turns around and swats Peyton before I can see it, or realistically in my situation, it's the opposite. Peyton will wail on Bryce. I cannot control that right in the moment. But we can control at the end of the day, telling our children that we love them and that we're proud of them. Lastly, we can't control our past, but we can control how we do our present and our future. And that present and future lies in Jesus. So I think our biggest takeaway is that we need to make sure that whatever happened, happened. The past is in the past. The present is now, and the future is further away. And if we want to spend eternity, we have to give up that portion of control of our lives and give it to Jesus. It's a hard thing to do. Really, it's simple. But to say, Jesus, I cannot do this on my own. I need you. For some reason, it's one of the hardest things on the planet. And then you say it, and you feel so much better. So much better. But we can't do anything without Jesus. I just think, you know, people, again, going back to that first point, they'll go and they'll be getting going, and then next thing you know, they're worn out. Why do people get worn out so easy? Because they're trying to do things on their own. We're trying to play the role of God in a different aspect. Give it to God. Ask somebody else for help. It's okay. Don't worry about what tomorrow holds because God's got it. We need to, this is not saying though, sit back and don't do anything. We need to be prepared. You know, we need to work our butt off so eventually I can beat Jericho in wrestling. Right? We need to work our butts off to get to that point. It's not saying, oh, God's got it. We need to work. But at the same time, don't worry about it because God's got it. So we're going to close with a song. I got to set the phone up. It's called Control by 10th Avenue North. It just says, the words of it are,